Okay, so today we're going to speak about one of the most fundamental mitzvot in the Torah, which is the mitzvah of loving your fellow Jew like you love yourself. So hopefully we all love ourselves very much, which is normal. And we have this great, powerful love for others corresponding to the love that we have for ourselves. You know, it's very interesting that it says Abraham loved his son Isaac. So now Abraham had love for his son Isaac. And then it says Isaac loved his son Rebecca. Isaac loved his wife Rebecca. So the commentaries explain that because he got love from his father, he was able to contribute love and give love over to his wife. So when you're secure in your own skin, then you're able to have love to others. So when you think about the word love, many different definitions might come to mind. An emotion, a feeling. You could say words like affection, connection, warmth, pleasure. Everyone has a different explanation of love. But there's a common denominator to the concept of love. It's a feeling that we have. So after the feeling, you could develop it, or you could behave in a way where you diminish the love. So you could either develop the love, or you don't necessarily behave based on the love. So it's like the statement falling in love. Many times it's not your choice, you just fall in love. The same thing is by emotions. Anger, happiness, depression. Of course, mature adults could control their anger, maybe even control your happiness if it's totally out of hand. But the initial feeling is not something you could do anything about. What is the solution? That if you want to love someone else, but you don't feel it, your spouse, your son, your daughter, your parents, your friends, co-workers, you just don't have a feeling of love. The feeling is not there. What should you do? Sometimes it's hard to love your loved ones. How do we do this? So in this week's Torah portion, right here in text number 1, it says, "You shall not take revenge or bear a grudge against a member of your people. You shall love your fellow as yourself. I am God." Very powerful statement, as we're going to explain now. The obvious question is, how can the Torah command you to love? Every Jew without exception? If you command me that I have to do something, let's say you command me I have to light Shabbat candles. Okay, maybe I don't want to, but you could command me to do it, and I do it even if I don't have a feeling towards it. You command me to put on tefillin. So if maybe I'm not interested in putting on tefillin, but I could still put it on even if I'm not interested. How could you command me to go and love that person if I really don't like him? He's rude, he's nasty, he's not kind. How could you demand me to love him? How could you demand someone to have a love, which is a feeling? It's almost like I tell you, go date this woman and I want you to love her. But I don't. What kind of commandment could there possibly be and demand from us to love? More so, the Torah says you should love someone else like you love yourself. How can you command to love someone else like you love yourself? We love ourselves a lot. How could you love someone else like yourself? Let alone a complete stranger. How am I supposed to love a stranger? So, in order to explain this, there's different commentaries that try. You wanted to say something, Steve? I'm sorry.
Just
Oh,
is it love your neighbor or is it love your fellow Jew? Or is it both?
literal translation is as you see here in text number 1, you shall love your fellow. That's a literal explanation. But we know Re'acha has a deeper thing. It means your friend, which is a Jew. But there is a commandment to be kind to everybody because of respect. But the main mitzvah is to other Jews. Yeah. So if you look in this commentary in 2a, the Cheskuni, which lived in France from the year 1250 to the year 1310, and he explains that it's not a command to feel love. The commandment is action, which means it says lireacha. What he brings out from this is not love your friend. It means behave with love to your friend. So you cannot command to feel love. You could command to act kind. You know, like your mom used to tell you when you're a child, you're not in the mood of someone. She says, just be nice. Act nice, even though you deep inside don't feel it. This is what this commentary wants to explain. More so, the next commentary in text 2b also goes on these lines. He says you should treat someone else's money like your money. Again, it's a command of an action, not necessarily a feeling. His money should be as important as your own. So if you're staying in his house, shut the lights in the room just like you would do in your own house. So they both agree there's no commandment on a feeling, but it's a commandment on an action. But even though this answers the question to some level, but most commentaries don't agree with this. You know, behave in a loving way means to show love. You know, there's a certain amount of love that you're supposed to have. I mean, that you should feel. A feeling, not only an action. So look here clearly. The Maimonides says in text number 3 that you're supposed to love somebody, not only feeling, it has to be a feeling towards someone else. He gives a much broader approach. He says it's a feeling that you want to do good to someone else. It's not limited to one or two actions. It's an actual feeling to others. I want to do good for someone else just like I want good for me. There's an example that Rabbi Gordon, should rest in peace, gave. The teacher once called, the child once slapped the teacher in the face. So the teacher calls the father and says, "Your child wants to hit me." The father asks to the teacher, "How do you know he wants to hit you?" So the teacher answers, "He hit me," which means you can look on the action or you can look on the state of mind that brought to the action. So again, the child hit the teacher. The teacher called the father and said, "Your child wants to hit me." Guess what? He wants to hit him. How do we know he wants to hit him? Because he hit him. So do you look at the action or do you look at the emotion that led to the action? So Rashi explains also on these lines that it's a feeling. Rashi right here in text number 4. He quotes from Rabbi Akiva that it's a very important rule in the Torah. Which means if Rashi quotes from Rabbi Akiva that it's an important rule in the Torah, meaning it has a very strong fundamental idea, which is a feeling. It's not only a technical behavior, it is a rule, it is a principle, which is a feeling. Every Jew has to have a positive feeling to someone else. But according to the Maimonides and the Rashi, that it's a feeling, we go back to our question we had in the beginning of the class. How could you command someone to have a feeling? If it's an action, you could command, but not a feeling. I could force you to eat spinach, but I can't force you to like spinach. I could force you to buy a blue pair of shoes, and I could force you to wear them, but I cannot force you to like a blue pair of shoes. You know, Jackie Mason used to say, develop a taste. Okay, so it might take some time, you know, maybe you don't like seltzer water, but maybe develop a taste. But again, you can't command from him to like it. You could command him to drink it, and then maybe he'll start liking it. Well, Rashi gives us a clue when he quotes Rabbi Akiva. There are other statements that Rabbi Akiva says in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, which is actually going to be read next Shabbat, Pirkei Avot chapter 3. It says here in text 5, the Jewish people are called children to God. Now listen to this. Aside from describing how kind we are, how kind God is to us, that we are his children, it also explains to us the relationship between one person and the next. And this answers our question. It is a natural feeling that you love your siblings. We're not commanding you to love a stranger. And this actually answers what Steve asked before. Yes, this specific commandment is to another Jew. Another Jew is like your sibling. So therefore, we could command you to have that feeling because it's already easy. Your mom could tell you, love your sibling, because it's your sibling and you naturally have love to them. You just need to awaken it. So when God says, you're my children, that doesn't only emphasize the love from God to us and us to Hashem, but it emphasizes that we're all siblings. But the issue with this is, the reality is that even though it's true that we're siblings, but you have that guy across the street that's kind of annoying. You have that coworker, he might be Jewish or she might be Jewish, but they're very annoying, as we say. How could I love them like a sibling? Of course, we know that everybody is a distant cousin, but how could you have this feeling for every single Jew and feel that you love them like your own family? How is that possible? Well, text number 6 will give us a clue to answer this question. The bond from one person to the next is shared not because of their physical body, but because of their soul. That's causing the strong love from one to the next. Each soul is a part of Hashem. If two siblings are born from the same parents, so they love each other. The same thing is our souls that come from Hashem himself. As the Medrash Shmuel explains this idea that we have a soul that comes from Hashem himself. The Tanya in chapter 32, which is Lev, Lamed Bet, which is the heart. If you're aware of the reality of the soul, then it's possible to attain a love for every Jew like you love yourself. If you tap into the soul, think of it also, if you realize how special someone else is and you understand it, then your love will become greater to them. Every single Jew is special. They have a soul. The soul is connected directly with Hashem. Of course, it's a feeling of love. But the love has to be soul to soul, not body to body. Now, it all sounds good, but how can we do this? How do you demand from Jewish people that are a soul in a body to love someone else because of their soul? Even though the guy is not religious, even though he doesn't keep any Torah mitzvot, or maybe he is religious, but he's not a kind individual, and so on and so forth. How am I supposed to uncover my soul, let alone uncover the soul of someone else? How do you demand of us to do that? Well, we have to explain how to do two things that must be done to accomplish this. There are, number one, we have to get in touch with our own soul to look beyond our physical and our needs and to reveal the spiritual side of us that's not interested in clothes and money and honor and all that stuff, but we look at it more in the spiritual side. That's number one. We have to tap into our spirituality. Number two, which is step 2, is to connect with the soul of someone else and to uncover. So first we have to make sure to tap into our soul, and then we tap into someone else's soul. And realize that we're really truthfully siblings. And in that location where we are siblings, it's a natural love. Of course, it's hard. How much of us feel godliness more important than our physical life? But the shift in attitude even though it's not easy, but it's something we could all identify with. Think of it like this. Each one of us felt our soul at some point in our life. Let's give 3 examples. You did something good even though you didn't want to. Every one of us did that. Every single one of us did something good even though we really didn't want to do it. Okay. That's tapping into your soul. You were selfless. You gave something to someone even though you didn't want to. You rise to the occasion when it was necessary, even though your desire was not to rise to the occasion. So you tapped into your spirituality. But for most people, it only happens once in a while. For most of us physical people, we try to change, but most times it doesn't work. So the question is, we understand that the way you're going to love someone else is because of the soul, but we're physical people. We like eating, we like drinking, we like making money, we like having fun, we like sleeping, we like our physical. So how do you expect to demand from someone to connect with and tap into his soul? Well, we have to explain this in order to understand how we're going to tap into our soul and then tap into someone else's soul. The answer is, as we see here, from another statement that Hillel gave here in text number 8. The language the soul speaks, when you speak to a kid, you have to speak one language, meaning the language that they understand, more kid-friendly. When you speak to an adult, you have to speak more in an adult language. The soul has a specific language. Look here in text number 8 from Hillel. Hillel said as follows: be like the students of Aaron, love peace, run after peace, love other people, and bring them close to the Torah. His statement seems a little puzzling. Why does he give only one option in order to love? The only way to love is to bring someone to the Torah and the mitzvot? I'm sure there's other ways to love. To express your love to others, maybe invite them over for dinner, maybe bring them flowers. We know studying Torah and doing a mitzvah with them is one of them, but there's for sure other ways. Why do they only bring one way? For instance, the Maimonides brings many ways. He says, speak kind about others, as we see here in text number 10. Speak kind to others. Be sensitive to their money. Honor them just like you want to be honored. It's not only Torah study. Well, the Rebbe explains here in text number 11 something fascinating. Hillel was saying, don't bring the Torah to them. Bring them to the Torah. What this means is, don't lower the Torah to them, to their standards, and compromise the Torah. Bring them to the Torah means uplift them to the Torah. Of course, go down to them to speak to them, but don't lower your standards for them. Bring them up so they will become better and become holier to the Torah. But again, this also is a little funny because it comes out Hillel is only saying what we should not do. Don't bring the Torah down to them. But what's the positive? Love is very strong. Sometimes love could bring us to compromises. We all know sometimes even when someone falls in love, they will compromise in their type of marriage because they fell in love. sometimes love could compromise our values and morals. So Hillel explains us what type of love we should have. Keep your standards in place without compromising. Of course, it's important, but you can't say that's the only thing that Hillel meant. So what exactly does he mean when he says care about someone else and bring them close to the Torah? Is there no other way to bring them close? I mean, there's no other way to love them? In order to understand this, we have to bring another thing that Hillel said. Hillel is not only saying not to lower yourself to them and not to water down your values, but he's also telling us how to go about it, how to go about to connect with another Jew. He's not only telling us to love someone, but he's telling us how to love. This is what Hillel is trying to accomplish. He's telling us and explaining to us how to show love to someone else.
Rabbi Mann?
Yes.
I'm listening to what you're saying, and it comes to mind if you become a doctor, the expression is do no harm. So I'm wondering, instead of from love, why not just like don't embarrass anybody, don't gossip? Why can't it be from that kind of perspective? Instead of love, don't do anything bad, or does it have to be from a love perspective? Like medicines do no harm.
You mean in a way that might be solving our issue here, because we're said that you might have a hard time having a feeling to somebody. So, but again, that's going to make our question again stronger, because it says that it's a feeling. The ahafta, Rashi wants to explain that it's a feeling. You're right, what you're saying, and that's why some of the commentaries say it's just an action. But we want to try to explain how you could also enhance the feeling part of it, because that's the literal explanation, that it needs a feeling.
Like don't do anything that you wouldn't want anybody to do to you.
Fine, right. But again, I don't necessarily feel love to the other person. I'm just behaving nicely. I'm not doing anything bad to him, but I don't love him. How do I love him?
Right.
So this is our point that we're going to try to bring out now, is how to enhance that feeling. So we did explain already that it has to do with the soul, but let's understand how we could tap into that. So Hillel is basically saying that every Jew has a soul, and it's impossible to get rid of your soul. You cannot get rid of that soul. The soul is always there. God forbid, even if someone baptizes themselves, the soul is always going to be there. It's your essence. Almost like the fire that's inside a rock, even if the rock is in the water for 20 years. But when you take the rock out and you rub two stones, whatever they're called, together, the fire will still come out, because the fire is deep, deep inside. So here's the point. The Rebbe explains in the Rebbe Rashab in text 12a and 12b. The point is like this. Here comes the idea. Okay, you have a soul, of course. The soul is always alive. It makes no difference if it does the commandments or it doesn't. But without keeping Torah, the soul is not active. You can have somebody that went to law school and became an attorney, but they sit home all day doing nothing. Their degree is not active. They're an attorney, but it's not an active attorney. They might have become a doctor, but they're not an active doctor. So the point here is that the soul can never be extinguished, even through sin. But without keeping Torah, the soul is irrelevant to you. What comes out from this is that the soul is connected with Hashem. It doesn't depend on the Torah. But the only way to reveal this is through the Torah. To tap into your soul is only through studying Torah. In other words, like this, we all have a soul. You know how you tap into it? Through learning Torah. what you're doing right now, through doing a mitzvah. And by the way, the soul, as we see here, quoted in text number 13, the soul is compared to a candle. In order to reveal the soul, you need a wick and you need oil. The fire is the soul, the wick is the body, and the oil is the Torah. The only way the fire is going to burn is through the body and the Torah. The Torah is the fuel for the soul to burn strong. And this is what Hillel said, bring them close to the Torah. If you really want to feel love for someone else, the best way to do it is to reveal your soul and their soul through Torah. You and I are all connected right now because we're all studying Torah. It's not a superficial connection. It's a true, real, strong connection. The Torah is revealing the soul and its connection to Hashem. And when you connect with someone on that level and you engage with their soul, you are becoming united together. And you reveal the sibling quality. This is a true fire of love. This approach is much deeper. And this is why Hillel, someone came to him, a non-Jew came to Hillel and said, please convert me. So Shammai sent him away. Hillel told him, don't do to others, like you said before, Steve. Don't do to others what you don't want to be done to you, and the rest is commentary, which brings us to a very strong question. There's 613 commandments. Loving your fellow Jew is the most important. That's only one of them. But this is the main thing, because the 613 commandments are made up of loving your fellow Jew. Why? Because just like loving your fellow Jew, you have to uncover your soul. So to the rest of the 612 commandments, you have to uncover your soul. If you don't, then you're going to say, oh, I don't have time for Shabbat. I don't have time to pray. I don't have time to study Torah. If you disconnect from the soul, then you're not going to keep any of the 613 commandments. So when you make your soul strong, then you keep the rest. Because the Torah is all about revealing the soul. You know, we many times encounter people that are maybe ultra-Orthodox or zero connection to Judaism. And we have a hard time relating to these kind of people. Some of them are extreme either direction. And you say, I can't deal with these people. But when you uncover your soul and you realize that even if he's an extreme, but he has a soul, and even if he's extreme to the negative, he also has a soul. Now, it's fairly easy to a certain level to be able to love every person, every Jew, even if someone's in the other end of the world. But you know, sometimes we have a hard time loving our own spouse, our own parents, our own children, and our own friends. Sometimes we fail. We fall out of love. We apologize and we really mean it, but then the love doesn't come back. Sometimes it stays very shallow. Today's class approach is, it offers us a way to strengthen our relations and our relationships with others. and reconnect with the ones we love, to develop a soul connection. Love is a very strong emotion. This strength deserves respect. For the strength, this entire behavior of connecting with the soul is the way you strengthen the love. It might be hard to find it within yourself. It might be hard to love someone else. And the message of Hillel tells us, if the love is concealed, you have to access the most foundational point of yourself in order to connect with others. If the love left, don't try to return that same love, but reach for the soul. It's like the well springs, as you see in this photo. If the water dries up, dig deep and find water. Dig deep, and you'll find the soul in yourself and in others. Not deep down, but deep high. In order to dig deep, you need to have vessels. It could be through doing Shabbat together, through studying together. This type of love might sound foreign to us, but it's the most direct method. Love is a very strong emotion. Some people want to strengthen the love through superficial behaviors. Going on vacations, hanging out with each other. Some people are losing the point. It's important, of course. Spending time with each other is crucial, most definitely. But it's shallow. It's not very deep. The Torah tells us to do it through the deep soul. That's going to enhance every situation. When you do activities together, even though it's important, but it's still separate. You're two separate people. In order for the souls to be united, you need more spirituality. Even in a marriage, the Rebbe used to say, bring spirituality into your life and it will enhance your marriage. A Jewish person, his deepest part is his soul. Provide the means to the soul to light through the Torah and the mitzvot, and then it will shine. And then love and connection will follow. If you sign the soul, love and connection will follow after that. So in other words, if you bring out your love through the soul, not only it's going to enhance, but it's going to strengthen it. It will be a real strong love. Because it's not based on a reason. You could only love someone else truthfully because of the soul. Because if the other person is smart and then they become dumb for whatever reason it is, you're not going to like them. If the other person, you like them because they're rich, and then God forbid they become poor, now you don't like them. And many wealthy people know that. When they unfortunately lost their wealth, they lost all their friends. because it wasn't real friends. They were hanging around them because they had money. So enhancing love, whether it's between family members or strangers, through bringing out the soul. And you don't even have to bring it out. You meet somebody and you know he has a soul. You love him because you see the soul. And this is the love the Rebbe had for every single Jew, because the Rebbe felt and understood the person's soul. So no matter who it was, the Rebbe showed him an enormous amount of love. So this is our answer, how we could enhance and feel love, because it's based on the soul, not on the body. Thank you for joining. It's great to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on. Sei gesund, and have a great rest of the week, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care, Jonathan.
Thank you. You too.